Welcome to Impact Farming, where we introduce you to the people and ideas that will have a massive impact on your farming operation. Brought to you by Farm Marketer. Sit down, start the engine, and let's roll with today's show.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Impact Farming Show. Today I have Art Lange joining us again. Art, how are you?
Oh, going well, yeah.
Good. Art is a farm business consultant with AJL Consulting. Art, you're here to chat with us today about addressing financial distress to improve mental health. And I'm really excited because that title of our episode and time together today takes two of the biggest subjects we talk about on this show and puts it in one. So no pressure. I'm excited. Before we dive in, do you want to quickly tell our audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. Hi, Tracy. Thanks for having me again. I enjoy doing extension work. I came out of the provincial government system where I did a lot of that. And I've been doing farm business planning with and for farmers for about 18 years now in all sorts of financial situations, new startups, expansions, diversifications. And today what we're going to talk about is the people that have some financial stress leading to mental stress or vice versa. I'm not sure which way it goes, but as you mentioned, the two are closely intertwined. And so hopefully if we can help people address the one, it'll alleviate the other.
Okay, perfect. And I know you already touched on it a little bit. Do you want to discuss that a little bit more and why you really see the connection or the back and forth? And let's set the stage for the conversation and then we'll flow from there. Why do you think this is important to be discussing this topic?
Well, I know in Alberta, central North Alberta, where I mainly operate, the last 2 years have been really stressful. 2 years ago, we had a lot of excess moisture in a lot of cases, and some fields got seeded late and others didn't get seeded, and what got seeded got flooded. So it all created financial stress because the yields weren't there and the quality wasn't. Last year, we had drought across most of Western Canada. So that created more problems. And so this year, we've got improved commodity prices, but the input prices are jumping by leaps and bounds, so creating all sorts of problems. I remember one farmer telling me that if I get a normal crop at a normal price, and even if the price doubles and I get half the crop, I'm no better off. So with increased input costs, I'm probably worse off.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and now we always talk about the stress of the finances and the cropping year. Do you want to expand on that a little bit and talk about the mental health of the farmer and essentially in turn the family and the connection between the two? Do you want to go there?
Well, yes, if there's financial stress, us being guys, we try to internalize that and say, oh yeah, we can handle it. No point involving the rest of the family and getting them all worried. But I mean, this stressful attitude permeates and becomes apparent to the other family members, or in some larger farms, of course, there's a farm team. So if you let that go unchecked, then it negatively affects everybody, and it creates all sorts of problems for the person themselves and the rest of their family. So I recommend that if there's any indication of financial stress, which I've worked with quite a bit, is to lay it out on the table and say, I now know I've done that with my own family when our family was young. Sometimes things were really, really tight and got the family together and say, the next little while, we're just going to have to really buckle down. And because the income isn't there, we've got some unexpected expenses, and let's talk about it and deal with them. And yeah, and we'll get further into that subject as we go along.
And I think you're so right, Art. And I'll be stereotypical, and people can send me angry emails if they want to. That is fine. But I think if they look deep within, they'll realize that, right? Women, just our genetic makeups and our personality types might skew that a little bit, but women are used to talking things out, right? With family members, friends. That's natural. And then that's a stress relief. And I see it in my life too. And then the man, he wants to internalize it, not share that burden. But wow, that's a huge mental burden. And then now you get mental health on top of everything, right?
Yeah.
Not good.
So let's try and deal with the situation.
I love it. You are an action man, Art. So you have some great suggestions, guidelines, tips today. What is the first thing you would recommend to a farmer in this situation?
Well, first of all, is to try and get a handle on the overall farm financial situation. And to start that, I recommend, if I'm working with farmers, do a net worth statement. List all your assets, list all your liabilities, and what's the bottom line look like. And if you've got about 20% or less debt, that's an ideal situation. Probably people that we're addressing today are more likely to be in the 40 or 50% debt, which makes it hard to service that debt, meet all the expense requirements, and still have money for a family income. The family has to live.
Yes.
And as you probably talked about with Elaine Fraze, let's not talk about $20,000 a year. That's totally unrealistic. We're looking 50 to 70,000 to. I've had people say, I want to pull $120,000 out of the farm every year. Well, maybe you can, maybe you can't.
Yeah. Life isn't cheap, that's for sure. And sometimes we dramatically underestimate those expenses, right? Those personal living costs.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's number one. Did you want to touch on that a little bit more, or do you want to move to your second action item?
Well, let's move to the action items and actually start dealing with the situation.
I love it. You're such an action man. Let's get to it, Art. Okay, so your second action item is goal related. Do you want to expand on that?
Well, yeah, after we've got it down on paper, let's see where the family financials are actually at. Let's talk with the rest of the family or the team and say, we're here now. Where do we want to be in 5 years? Where do we want to be in 10 years? What is our overall goal? And if we have adult children or close to adult children, they should be part of this discussion, because it'll give them some idea, do I want to be part of this farm in the future or not? And they may as well know the financials right from the beginning, because they'll find out sooner or later anyway. So once we've got where we're at, so we're looking down the road where we want to be. And so how can we make this work? And of course, what we're trying to address today is that if there is financial stress, then how do we deal with it?
Absolutely. Okay, so that's the first one, the second one, and I know you have a good, strong list of additional suggestions. Do you want to go through those?
Yeah, when I'm working with people in this situation, the first thing I look at is that, well, most likely we have to get the debt load down. Usually the debt load is too high. So how can we do that? The first thing to look at is selling some assets. And with grain farmers, well, and other farmers too, is to look at excess machinery or overcapacity machinery. Machinery is just such a profit robber because it's a depreciating asset.
Yes. Yes.
And, you know, a new combine being $800,000 plus these days, it's, yeah, it's
Can I
huge.
ask a question
Yeah,
or make a statement?
yeah.
Behind the scenes, chatting with advisors like yourself and different people that have worked a lot with farmers, I've heard the comment and I want to bring it here. We do talk about it. I'm glad you said that, but a lot of advisors to farmers that see financials go, farmers are way over invested, way over in debt on machinery, way more than they need to be.
Well, let's be careful about that. That's a general statement. Some
Yes.
are and some aren't, you
Right.
know. And I've worked with people that do very well just working with used machinery, realizing there's drawbacks to that, of course. But yeah, especially on the smaller farms where they try to do mixed farming, they have some grain, some cattle, some forage, some this, some that. The amount of equipment I see scattered around yards is just makes my head shake. Why are you trying to do all this?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's a good point. Okay. Carry on. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you there, but that's just a thing I've heard. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, this is the value of hopefully getting 2 or more points of view here, and then people can listen to it and make up their own minds. But the next thing, if the machinery thing isn't going to, quotes, solve your problem, the other thing to look at is selling land. Now, I know that's a that's a no-no, and and shouldn't be discussed, but it just has to be discussed because that is the next logical step. But what I've been able to do with some people I've worked with is sell land, get their debt down, and then rent the land back. So we're still getting the reproductive value of the land. And yeah, it's costing some for rent. And in a couple of situations, even we've been able to get a buyback clause within 5 years to buy the land back at a certain specified price. Mind you, you need a very friendly buyer on the other side to make this work. But the people in their rural settings know people in the neighborhood that, let's say, are quite well heeled and wouldn't mind helping somebody out. I mean, they're secure. They have the land as their collateral. They're not going to lose that. And if the financial situation of the seller's farm improves, perhaps he can buy it back.
Okay. Clever.
Because,
I've never heard of that.
oh yeah, I've done that in several situations. And like I said, you need some friendly help
Yes. Yeah.
on the other side of the equation, but it can be done.
Okay. Excellent point.
We should go on, or it's your turn.
Yeah. Yeah. Just, I think you have a list, so I'm just going to let you roll. If I think of something, I'll pop in, but otherwise keep going. You got the good stuff.
Well, I don't want to yatter on.
No.
Much. The other thing, if you're not doing it already, is off-farm employment. Now, I'm not saying this is appropriate in every situation, but sometimes grain farmers during the winter time have some extra time on their hands. So maybe that's a possibility and maybe isn't. Okay, the next big one, of course, is the debt restructuring. What I see in many financial situations, there's too much current debt, and current debt means the debt that is payable within the next 12 months. That means all your loan payments, all your input payments, all your payments that you have to all your suppliers, the tire shop, the fertilizer dealer, yada, yada, yada. And that's just too high an amount for many farms to handle, especially when the income isn't there.
Right.
It's been reduced for the reasons we mentioned previously. So what do we do? Well, in a situation like that, the usual approach is to take all the debt, throw it into one big pot, and then amortize or stretch that debt out over a longer period of time, like 20 or 25 years, to get your annual payments down. I know that's short-term gain for long-term pain, because you're going to be paying more interest in the long run, and farmers hate to pay interest and they hate to pay taxes. And you got to pay that loan off as quickly as possible. Well, in a lot of cases, that doesn't make good sense. The other thing you can do to alleviate that more interest charges is most loans will have a 10% allowance for you to pay the loan down by 10% of the principal on the anniversary date. So again, if you've got some extra money, you've been careful and saving some, is throw it against the principal on the anniversary date. And with some lenders, you can pay down any amount at any time without penalty, like FCC. I didn't say that.
Okay. That's some good stuff. Well, and Art, you see way more financials than I do, but I can't help but wonder, and especially with newer farmers, you have a lot of debt, you have a lot of payments per year. Mm-hmm. And I think we all go in hoping that we're going to get 100% of what we expect. But as we all know, and I'm sure this has happened since the beginning of time, but these last couple of years have been extra stressful. So it's kind of hard to run an operation and correct me if I'm wrong, run and build an operation at the cost that we have now and not plan for 100%, right? I don't know. Is there a lot of farms out there that could go, okay, here's our costs of our operation. If we only get 50% of the crop, we're okay. Is there a lot of farms that have that much movement there?
I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't really have a handle on that. But lenders, you brought up a good point. Lenders like to see what's called sensitivity analysis. That means, yes, if I get 100% of the crop at full market price, I'm fine. Yeah. The lender will say, what if you get 75% of the crop? How does your numbers look then? And with the program I can quickly generate that.
Okay.
And then, okay, let's look at 75% of the crop and look at 75% of the income. Yeah. Okay, so we've got a double whammy here. So how you fix then? So I can run another analysis and show how that works. So I can run those scenarios and to help the farmer decide, well, especially if they're going into a new purchase, do I really want to do that? Because what if I get 75% of the crop yield and the market price drops? Can I still handle that? Do I want to? Yeah. Hey, what does the rest of my family say? Maybe not. Hey, mom here, I'm looking for a new kitchen. Hey, mom, the farmhouse is 75 years old.
Yes.
I'm looking for a new one.
Well, and I always end up saying this in every segment, but that is the neat part with, and I'm going to get you to do a little plug for yourself after, as always, but that's the neat part working with a farm advisor, because I find as individuals, no matter how smart we are, we get stuck in our own wheelhouse of knowledge, right? We only know what we know until we get new stuff. But if you have somebody to come in, not only do they give a different perspective, it's somebody to bounce it off, right? And work with, and you have the tools. So
I have the tools, and I've got the expertise of dealing with a wide variety of situations. So when I see the initial financial analysis that we talked about, I pretty well know what's possible to do here and what isn't possible. So let's throw the impossible and the ridiculous out right away and just deal with those things that are actually possible.
Yeah. And I mean, going back to the title of this episode, addressing financial stress for mental health, to me, a big part of that is, when you think of the mental health, the talking, the having somebody to help you walk through this, even though we're strong, smart, independent men and women, there's just so much value, right? And having somebody to help walk you through that.
Well, especially, hopefully, this will only be a once in a lifetime occurrence, although I've had people with 2 and 3. and and you just don't have the knowledge and the tools and the expertise to deal with it. So what I tell farmers is do the things you like to do and you're good at, really bear down on those. What you're not so good at and you don't like to do, get some help. And farmers are doing that. They have crop consultants, they have marketing consultants. Some even have farm business consultants. So, yeah.
Okay, I jumped
Can't
in
be
there.
Sorry.
Nope,
I was
sorry.
just going to recap. You can't be an expert on everything, so focus.
Okay, so Art, I know you have a few more suggestions yet on the list, right?
Yeah, well, I do.
Excellent.
Let's run through those quickly. And the number one thing is try to keep current with all your payables, especially your loan payments, because once you fall behind on loan payments, it adversely affects your credit score. And yeah, you're just like a black sheep with lenders. So it's so important to keep up with your loan payments and your other payables too. And if you're using credit cards, make at least the minimum monthly payment to try and keep those current, so you're not missing payments. That really wrecks your credit score.
Okay.
Be open with your creditors. If you have problems, discuss it with them. Hopefully they'll try and work with you and make some adjustments, but sometimes they won't, because sometimes the situation has deteriorated from your side and from their side. And because if they constantly have to chase you for loan payments, they don't like to do that. And so, yeah. And so when the situation has deteriorated where your main lender or lenders don't want to work with you anymore, well, your alternative is to try to find new ones. And I've done that for and with people. And it's not easy. What's required is a business plan laying out what contributed to your situation, where are you at now, and what are you going to do to improve the situation, alleviate the problems using some of the tools we discussed previously, and lay all this out. And also very important, what are you going to do in the future to try to avoid similar problems? Because lenders realize problems do occur, and that's not unusual. The important thing is, how do you plan to deal with them in a constructive manner? And that doesn't mean going out to, in Alberta here, we have an outfit called Alpine Finance, which are equity lenders and other similar organizations, just borrowing more money from Easy Financial or someplace like that, borrowing more money to try to keep the operation going when what's required is a major overhaul, as we discussed previously. So, yeah, with the business plan, there's some important financial ratios that are generated, and lenders work with business ratios very much. That's what basically guides their lending. And so if you have a program that calculates those, which I do and other people, that is so important. And one of those important ones is the debt servicing ratio, which we won't get to an explanation of today, but it's a really important ratio. And yeah, so I think that pretty well covers most of the topics that we wanted to talk about today.
Okay, excellent. That's a lot of good information. So I'm going to take something out of your head that I imagine that you would say is act sooner than later, right?
Yes.
Don't let it get that far down. So if you want to comment on that, I'll also just ask you to wrap up with some final words of wisdom. I think I covered everything I wanted to get you to cover. So I'll leave this final space for you to wrap up.
Yeah. One thing I haven't mentioned yet, if you do one of these restructuring, it takes time.
Okay.
At a minimum, you need 6 weeks. And I've had situations that take 6 months or more. So it takes time. I had people phone me like before the end of the month, like a week before the end of the month, and say, oh, I've got this problem and they're demanding payment by the end of the month. Well, there's nothing I can do at that stage for them. These people knew that there was things going sideways on them, and they didn't deal with them in a timely manner. So, yeah, I just had one the other day. It was a combination construction company and farm business, but he gave me the gist of it over the phone, and I said, no, the best thing you can do is go to a bankruptcy trustee and see what they can do for you. So, yeah, sometimes that happens, and we have to make the farmer has to make drastic changes in their operations, which can be very stressful in itself, but there can also be a light at the end of the tunnel. I worked with some people that said to me afterwards, yes, it was very stressful at the time, but Art, I'm so much better off now because, yes, we had to lose give up some farmland or even our total farm. I'm working off the farm now. I have a steady income. The stress is behind me, and we've moved on. That's really the point we're trying to address here, is that dealing with stressful financial situations, moving on and improving your mental health and the rest of the families as well, because, yeah, it's just an awful situation to be in.
Yeah, I hear you. And it doesn't get any easier if you ignore it or just sit there and spin in the same spot, right?
No. What's the old saying attributed to Einstein? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I know didn't come from Einstein, but
yeah, that's perfect.
It came out of Alcoholics Anonymous, I think, or some other place. But this is so true, and yeah, and farmers are creatures of habit. We all are to some degree. We want to do the same thing over and over again. And if I have to tell a 40 or 50-year-old farmer, you can't carry on this way, yes, it's very, very stressful. Very stressful.
Okay. Well, that was a lot of good information on a tough subject, but I'm not here to cover the rainbows and kittens and rosy peaches, because while we all know farming is tough, it's getting more expensive and challenging. So I like bringing guests like you on to discuss these hard things, right? Because some farmers have had some tough years, and we have some challenges ahead with high costs and crazy markets. So thank you, Art, for opening the can of worms and talking about some of this hard stuff. I really appreciate it.
I just enjoyed, as I mentioned at the outset, I enjoy doing this kind of work because I think it's so important to get this kind of information out, and it's usually not readily available somewhere. If I can close with a little story.
Yes.
I like telling stories.
I love stories. We all love stories.
I'm an occasional contributor to Country Guide, to some of their articles, and I've got to know the editor, Tom Button, a little bit and visited with him in Ontario. And I said to him at one time, Tom, you always write these articles or have written articles about people doing wonderful jobs on farms, doing great things, diversifying, adding this, doing this, wonderful stuff. Great, but there's another side to farming, and that's dealing with farm financial and other issues, and you don't seem to hit on that very much. And he thought about it and he said, Art, you're right. We haven't covered those. But I have a rule that we have to identify actual people's names in my articles. And I said, that's not going to work, Tom.
Yes.
That's not going to work. But I think you need to address this subject. So he said, well, I'll assign you a writer. You work with her and you put some articles together. And I'll agree not to put any people's names in it. Yeah. But we'll deal with some of those articles. So he finally agreed to it. And I think it's about a year and a half ago or so, we actually did a small series of articles about that because, I felt it was important to address. It's just another point of view. And that needs to be mentioned because things go sideways in all of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, kudos to you, Art, and Country Guide's an amazing publication too. So they're doing good work. We need everybody, right? Sharing the good messages, the tough messages. And I sometimes think the tough even more so, right? Because somebody needs to talk about it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if I can help and there's other people like me that, that hopefully can be helpful, then I'll be glad to help anyone.
Perfect. And that was my final spot I wanted to leave off. If somebody wants to reach out to you, how can they do so?
Well, I have a website. It's ajlconsulting.ca. That's probably the easiest way. And there's a contact sheet at the end of that. So let's not get into emails because
that's easy.
Or just Google my name, Art Lange, Lange.
Yes.
And so just Google my name. It'll come up.
Perfect. And actually what we'll do, we'll include your information on the show page too, to make it easy for the farmers. So Art, as always, fantastic information. Thank you for the work you do and for sharing your knowledge with myself and the audience. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. And you in the audience, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this tough conversation as much as I did, like it, share it, and get it out there because chances are there are a few of our brothers and sisters in farming that are experiencing some stress, and the more information we know, the better. So thank you guys. Share it, like it, get it out there. See you next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Impact Farming. For more great episodes and articles designed to help you manage and grow your farming operation, head on over to farmmarketer.com. Don't forget to sign up while you're there. We will see you on the next episode.